Hey there, thanks for joining me today. I'm Danny Barker. I'm a real estate agent with 20 years in the Navy and 7 years now in real estate since 2019. I've helped several hundred buyers find out what it is that they're capable of buying, figuring out what they want to buy, and then going out and buying something that matches all of that criteria. It doesn't matter what market you're in. I do have a network of real estate agents that's spread across the United States that I can put you in touch with, and you'll be with a well-performing realtor. I know it's getting more and more difficult to figure out who's a well-performing realtor, who's faking it until they make it, and what that could cost me. But today, our topic is going to be about, do I ask for a price reduction or do I ask for credits from the seller? The focus is kind of in the realm of, after I've done my inspections and I've got some issues that I found, what do I ask? And so let's throw in the other option of having the seller do the repairs. So first of all, I want to have the seller do the repairs completely off the table, with one exception. The only exception is when the appraiser makes it a condition to their appraisal. So in those cases, you have to have the work done in order for the appraisal to be valid. And remember that the appraisal is ordered by the lender, paid for by you, and you are expected to respect the price that they come back with. Now, on top of that respect of the price that comes back with, there's what's called conditions. So if I'm going to put myself into the appraiser's shoes, I walk through the property, I see some mold, I see a leaking faucet, I see an unsafe electrical situation, I see that a window isn't able to close and keep the weather and bugs out, I see that the door isn't operating well, I see that there's weather and bugs inside, I see that there's a lot of deferred maintenance on the wood on the outside of the house, and maybe there's some wet rot or something going on underneath the sinks. Anything like that that's health and safety related, the appraiser can and probably will make that a condition to the value that they assign. And remember that value that they assign, we just needed to agree with or go above the agreed upon price that you're buying it at. We're going to revisit the appraisal in a minute because it's going to become relevant again. But for now, let's move on to the next thing. Credits towards my closing costs. So everybody's expected to have closing costs, right? And it's whether you're using a VA loan, an FHA loan, a conventional loan, or any other type of loan out there, you're going to be expected to have closing costs. And what is in this closing cost? The big stuff is going to be your property taxes that are prepaid, your prepaid insurance, your prepaid interest to the first payment. Because remember, let's say that you're closing in April. You're not going to make a payment in May, and then you're going to make a payment on the 1st of June. So that means that all of May has an assigned value of how much interest the investor that gave us their money to buy this property with is expecting to make on this property. So on this loan. So what we're going to do is calculate the per diem and say, okay, you have to pay your interest due at closing until the per diem until your first payment. So that's all of May, and then whatever part of April is left from the time that you close to the end of that month. This could be a huge benefit because if you're closing on your house in April and you're moving out of your apartment in April, you're going to be not making any payment, rent, or mortgage in May, and you're able to start living in the property right when it's available after closing and the sellers or tenants have moved out and made it available to you. So you might actually get a month with no rent and no mortgage. But let's roll it back and say credits or price reduction. Two times that this becomes relevant. It's most relevant in my conversations right now after the inspection is done. Let's cover what in the world is going on in this market first, right? So we have interest rates that want to go down. The market wants it to go down. Inflation got under control and wants to go down. But then now we have some oil pricing situations that are going to make things more expensive, which might feel like a quick inflation. Hopefully, we can get the oil prices back down pretty quickly, that it won't be a sustained higher prices on all of these things. But let's assume that there's pressure up to bring those interest rates up to control inflation. There's pressure down because the economy is strong and we're doing this, but then we have layoffs, and then we have AI threatening jobs, and then we have people, I'm not going to call out the company, but we have a big, huge company that just laid off a lot of people, hundreds of people. And when they did that, their stock value shot up, because when they did the layoffs, they didn't do it per what we are used to back in the 90s and 2000s, where they're just trying to get their bottom line right. What they did is they replaced those jobs with AI. So we have a lot of things that are out there fluxing. I digress, and let me bring it back to the credits and the reduction in price. So I've done my inspection. I found that there's probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of stuff that I would want to take care of right away. So myself, in the past and probably in the future, will ask for a credit towards my closing costs. That way, instead of pulling out of my bank account that 2 or the 3% of the purchase price in order to do the closing costs, I would rather only pay 1% or 1.5% and keep that other 1 to 2% in my pocket, so that when I close, I have the money that I can go get these things fixed. So I would suggest go ahead and do that, because what is proven already in this inspection is that the current owner is not willing to take care of this item that's a deferred maintenance item that is causing you concern. Now, why not bring the price down? Because there's a lot of benefits to bringing the price down. One, your monthly payment's going to be lower. Your property tax is going to be lower, especially here in California, because remember, when you buy a property in California, they base your property tax bill on what you bought it for, and then they can increase it by 2% per year every year going forward. So if you bought it for $10,000 less, your starting point is $10,000 less, which we'll call it 1%. So we're at $100 less per year, which is about $10 less per month in just property taxes alone. The insurance isn't really affected by a $10,000 reduction or increase in price. But you're looking for that smaller monthly payment. It's more important to you to have the smaller monthly payment than it is to keep this $10,000 in your pocket. It's entirely up to you. So in one hand, you can say, hey, I'm going to do a price reduction to get all of the price reduction benefits of that, instead of keeping the money in my pocket. In the other hand, in my seat, right, I'm going to ask for the credits from the seller so that I can keep that money in my pocket and use it to improve the home once it's mine. And remember, we don't ask the seller to do any of the fixes, because they've already proven to not want to do them and not have the resources or the motivation to do so. And I would hate for them to go out and hire the wrong person, uses the wrong material, does the job wrong, right? And then now they're on the hook for all of that. And then in order to make it right, you got to go hire a lawyer. And it's really difficult to do that. And why go through it? Why not just take the property as it is and then fix it yourself the way that you want to see it fixed? All right, so that's where I'm at. Now let's go back to the appraisal. Appraisals are necessary because the lender is taking money from an investor and they're lending it to you. Now the lender makes a service charge, right? It's usually about 1% of the loan amount. So the lender is getting paid to collect your money and distribute the payments to the investor. The investor is putting his big lump sum of money available for us to use, and then he gets paid the monthly payment, right? So without having to go into the whole, dynamic and construction of the what it's actually like, I tried to put it into like layman's so that we can all understand kind of what's going on. That investor, he's concerned because he doesn't know what you're spending $400,000 on. He doesn't live in that neighborhood. He doesn't know what the market's like, but who does is the appraiser. So the appraiser is the local expert that goes out and he looks for comparable sales in the recent past, and he compares what you're buying and how much you're buying it for, and he either agrees or disagrees. So in a scenario where you have all of these comparables that are just reaching up towards 400,000, but not quite, none of them sold for 400,000, and you're in contract for 400,000, it might be safer to go ahead and take that price reduction to 390. That way you're hedging your bets. And unfortunately, timeline in escrow puts us to where we're doing our inspection, we're asking for our repairs a lot of times before we even get the results from the appraiser back. Some of the states like California protect you that you can basically stall until the appraisal comes back. So if the appraisal comes back at 400,000, then I would ask for my $10,000 credit. if the appraisal comes back at 390, I would say, hey, look, the appraisal's at 390. I was already going to ask 10,000 off. Let's just go ahead and move forward at 390. So that would be a nice place to leverage that results of the inspection. If you're in a state where you can't stall until the appraisal comes back, then I would suggest work with your local rep who's in my network. And remember, I can put you in touch with anybody throughout the entire United States that is a well-performing realtor in your market, and they will take very good care of you and help you succeed in what you're doing. Also, you can have a meeting with me and we can do strategy calls and whatnot. And that's actually where I get most of my material on what questions and what topics am I covering on these videos, right? So let's apply it to, I'm shopping and I'm not in escrow yet. So credits or a price reduction. Now I'm looking for the properties that I like. I find a property that I like. Then I look at the history of the listing. So maybe they started out asking 450,000, then they came down to 425, and now they're at 400. I'm comfortable asking them to pay the $10,000 or $12,000 out of their proceeds if I offer them 400. But what I'm not comfortable doing, I'm not comfortable offering them 490 and asking for 10,000 back. In that scenario, we're probably going to get a response of 500,000 with 10,000 back. So, or 400,000 with 10,000 back. Sorry. So in order to prevent them from coming back to you at 410 with 10,000 back, especially if we're nervous about maybe we're close to where the appraiser is going to agree or disagree, might want to go ahead and get that 390 under contract. But either way, it's entirely up to you. Do you want to maintain possession of the cash that you would otherwise have to present and spend in order to close on this property? If you want to keep the cash in your account, you would ask for credits back towards your closing costs. And remember, as a VA buyer, we are allowed to ask for credits from the seller that pay for our closing costs and can pay off our debts. So if you're carrying a credit card balance from that emergency surgery that was at the veterinarian for your dog and it's $3,000 and you're not sure where you're going to get it paid back, you can always ask the seller to pay that back for you. Get that off of your credit report. And it makes you a stronger buyer, which is why the VA allows for that to happen. Okay, so where does the price difference, like if I ask for a lower price, where does that benefit me as a buyer? I would say monthly payment for one, and then when I go to resell it, I owe 10,000 less, and I started the loan at 10,000 less in that scenario. So I would materialize $10,000 more in the future. So in order to make the decision for yourself on what's more important to me, price or credits, and I would say it's entirely up to you. Do you value the cash that you have now over what your monthly payment will be? Because every $10,000 is going to be about $70 a month in payment, and that's to include property taxes and insurance, and principal and interest on that higher balance. So in asking for a price reduction, you'll get a lower tax base in California, especially. You'll get the lower monthly payment, and you would end up spending that 2 to 3% in closing costs out of pocket. In asking for credits towards your closing, you would keep that $10,000 to $12,000 in your pocket, and instead take that higher the payment, about $70 per month per $10,000 spent here now in California. But work with your lender and go over the different scenarios. Say, hey, lender, I have this scenario where I'm going to ask for them to reduce the price or bring credits towards my closing. Can you please tell me in each of the scenarios what's my monthly payment going to be in each scenario, and what's my out-of-pocket expense going to be in each of these scenarios? So in that way, you're making an informed decision that's right for you. I want to just reiterate one thing, and then we're done. New construction. In a new construction situation, these developers, they've got permission to build and sell several properties. And sometimes it's 300, 400 properties. A lot of times it's 40 to 60 properties. But the fact of the matter is that they do not want to reduce the price on not one house, because that will affect how much they can sell the next one for. Remember, comparables are one of the most powerful and influential items inside of an appraisal. So with a seller, they're always going to go after, a new construction seller is always going to offer the concessions, the closing cost assistance, the buying down your your interest rate so that you have a better monthly payment. But what they're going to do is they're going to maintain that high price that they have to have for their business model to make sense for them to make more housing available to us. All right. So we got new construction always wants to do credits. Sellers are case by case. The only time I've ever had an issue with sellers not wanting to do credits towards the buyer's closing costs are in the offer. Usually in the request for repairs, the sellers would prefer to sign off on a certain dollar amount instead of taking responsibility for getting this thing fixed before closing and be responsible for it for the next 7 years, at least here in California. Let's stay away from that liability word and let's just get after the money, make it make sense for both parties to move forward happily, right? So you got new construction wants to maintain that high price. They would rather give you credits towards your closing costs. Sellers out there are giving concessions to closing costs instead of price reductions. And they're also doing price reductions. It's very rare that you're going to get both, that you're going to get somebody to agree to sell you their house for a lower price than what they were advertising it for and take a lower net proceeds to them because they're going to be applying part of their proceeds to your closing costs. So just navigate it well, be informed, prioritize which one makes more sense to you. And also in some cases, especially us veteran buyers, especially the younger crowd in the VA buyers, you just made E5, you got BAH, you want to go out there and get a condo. In those scenarios, you don't have a whole lot of cash on hand. So keeping that 2 or 3% in your pocket is quite important and will help you with affordability going forward. If you do a simple math equation and say, okay, $10,000 out of pocket versus $70 a month, take 10,000 divided by 70. That's how many months it would benefit you for. And then after that many months, it would stop benefiting you. And I would say that here now, we have that pressure from the oil prices that are going up because of the conflicts over in the Middle East. We're getting that pressure for interest rates to go up because the cost of everything is about to go up because the cost of fuel is going up and the cost of goods follow the cost of fuel because fuel is what gets the goods to where they're being bought. And then the pressure down is our economy is good and we've been wanting lower interest rates this whole time. As a matter of fact, if Powell would have followed Trump's advice before he even became president, we would have already been into the sub 5% interest rates. So remember that if you're doing it for your monthly payment, you're probably going to end up doing what's called a VA IRRRL, which is an interest rate reduction refinance loan, right? In those scenarios, it's a very inexpensive loan. It's not free, but it's inexpensive. And you can literally just lower your interest rate by doing so. So if you lock in a 5.75 or a 6.0, buy your property today, and then the interest rates go to 5 or 4.75, you can do a VA IRRRL to bring that interest rate down. So I know that complicates things. So let's just bring it back right here, right now. When you're putting your offer together, please assess what's more important to you: cash in your pocket in closing, or cash or lower payment after closing, and it's your property. So I hope this helps. I hope this helps kind of help you, run it through your own mind. Once you've done and made your decision, if you want to bounce your decision and your reasoning against me, see if I want to push back on your position a little bit and see how sturdy we can get you into that position. The more confident you feel when you enter into negotiations, the more likely you are going to get what you want from those negotiations. So you and I can role play it, whatever the case is. Just call me at 760-497-9964. We'll hop on a call and I'll help you out. And especially if you need, to get linked up with a well-performing realtor in your market that's not your family member that feels like they're forcing you to use them, just give me a call and I'll link you up with my referral partner in your market and you'll have a wonderful experience. All right, guys, thanks. We'll see you next week.